for us, it's like DTC is a part of this physical, digital, technological, and behavioral system that you have to care and feed for all of it. You have to make sure that like a brand that's growing is going to get on shelves, and we want to give them tools to get on shelves. So now we know where your best customers are. We know where the people who buy your expensive products are. We know where the people who buy multiple products are. We know where the people who buy at certain times of day, certain times of year are. And you have to be able to take that information and then go to a distributor and say, hey, get us on these shelves in this state, in this zip code. It's not going to be a waste of your money.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It is another brand new episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of Bourbon. I'm Kenny Coleman.
And Ryan Cecil here.
Sans Fred Minnick, but we do have another returning guest on the show today. But this is going to be a topic that is hold near and dear to our heart now that we are starting to get into the DTC space. We know that DTC is on the radar of pretty much everybody inside of the craft spirits organization, whether you talk to people from the Kentucky Bourbon Trail or ACSA or anywhere else. People want to know how they can get their bottles in the hands of consumers. And I'm really excited to kind of dive in today and figure out how software is going to help alleviate a lot of the issues that we see today too.
I sure hope so. I mean, this is our 10-year anniversary, and I feel like this topic has been discussed for 10 years, and there has been great things, that have happened to push DTC forward, but still lacking a ton. And so, yeah, it's one of those topics that, especially our audiences, those craft whiskey nerds, whiskey geeks who want to get their access to bottles that they can't access all the time in their home state. It's an important issue for small brands, but big brands also. And so I think it's always relevant, and God damn, I just wish it would move forward. So
I know.
Maybe we'll move it forward after today.
Regulation. If you're in any sort of government appointed official position, you like getting wine to your door and you're like, I'd love to get a bottle of bourbon, and you realize I can't make that happen. Well, this is going to be the episode for you.
That's right.
There we go. So today on the show, we have returning guest Ari Sussman and his other co-founder, Bruce Fougere. Did I say that right?
No.
I knew I was going to.
Not even close.
Fougere.
Fougere.
It's like a fancy cheese.
Like Lumiere.
It is.
It's
a Beauty and the Beast.
Okay. So Fougere, thank you for correcting me. So you're not from Texas is what it sounds like.
No. Close to Louisiana, but Nova Scotia.
Okay.
So, yeah.
There we go. Awesome.
That adds up.
Yeah. So Ari, welcome back to the show as well.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah. Great to see you again. One of our favorite guests, and we got to catch up at the Whiskey Summit, which was fun. So
that was a lot of fun.
We were like it was like a ton of businessmen, and we're like the two artsy blender people, and like
who invited these guys?
Yeah, who invited these dumbasses? It was great. But anyways.
If anybody doesn't know, Ari was back on episode 465. We talked about building a celebrity whiskey brand, and he's done a lot of stuff for Gypsy and a few other different things as well. But today we're talking about something brand new that he's also got his hands in. It's called MASH Networks. But before we dive into that, Ari, we've talked about your past on that episode, so I'm not going to bore people with that because it was like 30 minutes. Like you have a great background, everything.
He needs like a 2-hour episode to go through all his job descriptions.
So I'd say people need to go listen to that one because it's a fascinating background of, being is Michigan State is where everything was and everything prior to then and working around the globe. So if it's a fascinating story, but I want to touch on Bruce real quick. So Bruce, kind of give us your background and sort of how you got into this world of spirits.
I'm not nearly as interesting as Ari at the end of the day, but
none of us are here.
You got an interesting last name though.
It's kind of a goal. Yeah, it was a gift. I spent the last 25, 26, maybe a little longer than that, years in advertising. And I lived my whole life kind of at this intersection of like technology and people and how they make decisions. And I worked at, when I really started working with internet stuff, probably, 95, 96, working on HTML1, trying to figure out how to build web pages. And then,
you got mail.
Yeah. Oh God. But it was in Canada. So it's like in French, and English, which is weird. But a lot of, my fascination the whole time through was, whether I was making TV commercials or making websites or making, direct to consumer experiences for people, was this sort of like this smash up of where like the physical world, the digital world, and the sort of the emotional world that people live inside their heads came together. And that's kind of what we were trying to, that was essentially the puzzle that was put in front of me when we started this company. Was we were helping a friend of ours out who has a distillery in it was up north Michigan. We're supposed to say up north Michigan.
Up northern Michigan.
Yeah, northern Michigan,
Michigan.
but up north.
Michigan's north as you can get already, so I guess we're just going really far north.
Well, what's weird is like up north isn't as north as the north part of Michigan, because like you can still go
I'm
more
sure
north.
people from Michigan are like, I get it.
Yeah, it makes total sense to them, but for me, I was like, I don't know, whatever. And the challenge that they were having was essentially they had grown as big as they could grow in Michigan, and they're stuck. You're stuck in that state. You want to go sell something in Indiana? Good luck. And you want to go sell something in Illinois? Good luck. It's too expensive. It's too time consuming. It's just impossible. And what I got brought in was to try and help figure out that problem. How do you grow beyond the state that you're in? How do you grow beyond the people that you can touch? And it's a fascinating problem. And pretty quickly we realized they're not alone in that. Everybody in this industry is basically landlocked in a state. And that was sort of what got me interested in this. And that was what sort of got me excited about it. And right away I knew we had to bring together a whole bunch of weird people with a lot of strange skill sets. So that's kind of how I got into it.
But your background is mostly in the technology side, or was it advertising and marketing? Where was your bailiwick? What'd you enjoy more?
My boss once described me as the creative director of the weird.
Oh, okay.
So
I like that.
Anything that didn't make sense in a traditional advertising model, if it involved making TV commercials, we made TV commercials. If it involved starting an entire television network for Walmart in store, that's what I did. If it involved, making some of the first, like online travel booking sites and building those kinds of things and getting people into it, figuring out how and why they made the decision to book, that was my job. So whatever made no sense in the traditional business model of agencies, whatever was new because the technology was evolving and we didn't understand how are they going to relate to that? How are they going to use it? There was a time when people didn't think that people would want to share information about themselves online.
Yeah, crazy.
They
right?
were wrong.
Yeah,
People love sharing.
And now they just can't. Now they just won't shut up.
Now, like, Mom, you don't have to post every single day, right?
Please stop liking my posts.
Yeah,
Please,
it's embarrassing.
That's weird.
Stop poking me.
It's like, yeah. So and where I've sort of always have lived is at that intersection of like, how is this tech going to, I think one of your guests a couple of weeks ago talked about how technology changes a behavior and then we have to change to match that. And then a new technology comes along and changes the behavior again. And that's what's really important and fascinating to me is how consumers continue to evolve and regenerate their relationship with technology. But my background's as a writer. So just super curious writer who got into weird shit.
So I'm sure you look at that, that distillery in northern Michigan and they're like, we want to outgrow our state, and if you want to do that, you got to go traditional 3-tier system, get a distributor. Like you said, it's expensive, time consuming. You can't throw enough money at it. But like when you're looking at it and like, okay, how do we, what did you see? I guess, what was that kind of initial landscape that you saw?
Yeah, look. I'll talk a little bit about this example.
This is how Ari and I
was going to
met.
say, I want to know the romantic story of how you all...
Right. How we met.
Yeah. It's got to be over some cheese or something, cheese and wine.
One too many bourbons, if you must.
I think it was a different fermented situation. The situation in northern Michigan was both unique and not unique. It's a small craft distillery, multiple tasting rooms, a tourist location. So there were people coming up once a year, once every other year, stopping by a tasting room, maybe buying a bottle, maybe not because they didn't want to schlep it home with them. They didn't want to pack it. People would say, can you send us bottles? Can we? Because they would go to wineries in northern Michigan. They could send the wine, but you couldn't do that with a spirit. So that was one of the solutions. That was one of the problems that needed to be solved. This distillery and frankly, I think thousands of mostly small distilleries, but also large enterprise distilleries are learning is that you've got all these touch points. You've got these tasting rooms. You're doing tastings in stores. And maybe you're creating a connection with a customer there. Maybe you're moving a bottle or two. But what are the mechanisms that need to happen for you to be able to sell to those people year round, not just when they happen to come into your facility? How do you create this kind of experience where people come in and to your tasting room or a restaurant or a tasting that you're doing at a place, and how can they sign up for the listserv? How can they buy from you several times a year? That's a problem. You want to serve the consumers, right? And you want to be accessible to the consumers. And DTC or e-commerce seemed like a pretty good solution that has worked in other industries that could help solve this problem for spirits brands.
It seems like an easy solution, but Michigan is by far the poster child for being a problem state as well.
Yeah, I think so again, just kind of coming back a couple of things. I think that was we're getting into this process was like a real eye opener because, I'd lived on the cutting edge of like where these technologies were, how everything in e-commerce works in the rest of the world. And then I got into the spirits business and I was like, oh, 1998. How delightful.
All over again.
Yeah, with a hint of 1898 thrown in. So
I like that.
So we kind of like what I started thinking about when as we brought in some more people, we all had the same sort of anaphylactic response. It just made us kind of choke up a bit, like to look at. So you have no data, you don't own your customer, you have no idea where they're coming from, you don't understand why they bought from you, and you have no way to get to them after they bought to you. This sounds awesome. Yeah. So it's a perfect storm of failure, to be honest. So we started looking at like, all of these tools are available everywhere. There's lots of e-commerce tools. There's lots of things that are out there that can help people grow. They can help them do the transaction. They can help them do all these things. And so we just started going down the list of saying, okay, which of these existing models in the world of e-commerce is going to fit best? So we started with like, let's just get on a marketplace and see what happens.
Like a Shopify kind of thing, or like what? What do you mean by a marketplace?
Well, so that would be more like your Amazons of the world.
Okay.
Now, not to talk about, any other stores, but, people have like just on
that or Google listings or whatever you can.
Yeah. More of like the actual place that you transact, like in Amazon. So again, without pulling up anybody else's names for things, I don't know what we're.
Sure. I don't care. You can say whatever.
Yeah.
Nobody else is paying us money, so I don't care.
Cool. Yeah. They all have a place, and we'll come back to that as well. Like marketplaces have a place, but the problem with the marketplace for can we say the name of the brand that we were working with?
Sure.
So Mammoth is, good friends and we love their stuff. And this is who a lot of this seminal work sort of was for. Is if you're on a marketplace, that's not your customer as the distiller. That's their
ownership,
customer.
the retailer. Yeah.
The retailer owns that.
An online retailer that has a sheet with a lot of different brands on it. You can buy bottles from it. There are many out there.
Yeah, sure. It's definitely grown in popularity.
Yeah, for sure. And there's nothing wrong with it. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. You should be on a marketplace. But the problem with the marketplace at the end of the day is that you're going to be spending $1 to get that sale. You're going to drive someone to that marketplace. You're going to run some advertising. You're going to get them to go there. And then what's the second thing they're going to see when they get there?
Well, they're going to go and add it to cart, and then they're going to transact, but you don't see that money right away. You don't get any of their data. You don't get their email address. You don't get their demographic. You don't get any of that. It's a black hole.
If you convert it, the second thing they're going to see is your competitor.
That's true.
And that's the marketplace mechanic. The marketplace wants to make sure that you buy. That's their job. That's how their business runs. So they're going to give you other options. In many ways, Amazon pioneered this thing, but it's the oldest thing in the retail book. We put all the cereal with the cereal.
Yeah, it's true. And then you could scroll down and be like, well, this one's got $5 off today. So maybe that's the brand I'm going to buy.
When you look at retail marketing, at the end of the day, everything that's at eye level is the most valuable real estate. Everything that's above and below a woman's eye level, and that's how those charts are calculated for those kinds of things, is slightly less valuable. And that's the shelf space that everyone's fighting for. In the online world, it's, you've had to pay to drive that customer to that site. Now they're going to show you everybody else who's at your spot in the shelf. So if you transact, you get a sale, but you get one sale. And that's what for us, the fatal flaw for a, craft distillers, really anybody at the end of the day, but the craft distillers particularly is, if you do get a single transaction, that's all you get. So your cost to drive that consumer to that site to make that transaction it's always going to be that amount. And you don't get a second bottle from them. You don't get the follow on. You don't get them to have like tied that experience of like what your site looked like and all that to that transaction. So you lose control.
We know this pain very well. I mean, we've got a very close friend and ally of the podcast that runs a very successful online marketplace.
Yeah.
And we were one of his first customers on there. And I remember years ago, we said, hey, can we get an email list of everybody that's bought bottles from us? And it was like, crickets, right? And so it's like, it's not because they're not our customers, right? And it wasn't to be selfish of saying like, if we were smart, we would have done this years ago and saying, let's go ahead and start building up our email distribution list. But Ryan had the good idea of being, warm-hearted, saying, well, we just want to send them thank you cards because they were our first customers and all this other kind of stuff. And it just never went anywhere, right? And so those are like the kind of things that like, it's good intention, but they're not our customers and we don't own the data. So it was kind of like, well, what's next?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just so you guys know and anybody knows, can I grab one of these prop bottles?
Yeah.
So in store, and this is a beautiful bottle, right? It's a beautiful bottle. I put that on my shelf. Sorry, I'll move over here. If I put this on my shelf and I get to about here, what needs to happen about here?
Time to reorder.
Reorder, right? There's all this real estate. There's all this other stuff where you could just put a QR code or a thing that says reorder now, jackass. Right?
Yeah,
you want something right there to say to people. So even if you're selling on a marketplace, one of the things to look at is how does your packaging exist in that environment versus a bar versus retail? And if you're going to do DTC, you have to take it seriously. You can't just look at it and be like, well, we got this. It's, we spent, a shit ton of money. So can we say that on a podcast?
Yeah, you could say a shit ton of money because that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. Very French.
Yeah, I mean, that's a metric shit ton as well,
there we go.
So you guys know. But there's nothing on here to tell people to reorder. There's nothing on here behaviorally to make that easy and frictionless. It's one of those things where like we don't look at stuff we don't look at DTC as, really its own thing with its own set of behaviors. And you need to think about how is that consumer going to reorder. So even if you sell on a marketplace, put the QR code on the back on all the bottles that go to the marketplace, and now you can get that customer for that second bottle, and you've made it easy. Now, if they won't allow you to do that, you got to question whose interest they're really serving, but it's your label.
Yeah,
It's your
totally.
bottle.
Yeah, and but even with that of the marketplace, I mean, where I'm trying to understand where this is coming, and you're probably I'm throwing a softball to you too. Is like, let's say I get my product on a marketplace. How do I start acquiring that information, and how does that customer become my customer as well?
Yeah, I think that you have to do two things. A marketplace exists as a marketing tool for you. So, what they used to say, fish where the fish are, right? So there's lots of fish at a marketplace, but you're competing with everyone else. You kind of have to be there. But you don't have to invest a ton of money. You don't have to invest all that. Your marketing should not be driving there. You have to have your own site experience.
Because I'm paying advertising for somebody else to make percentage points on the sale that they're going to get as the retailer anyway.
You're paying for someone else to get your customer at a marketplace. And again, there's places for marketplace, but you're driving a customer to a marketplace. The marketplace is now sending text messages, sending emails to the customer that you paid to drive there. So you have essentially subsidized the acquisition cost of that customer to the marketplace, which is great. I mean, it helps build awareness for the brand. But to your point, does it lead to a second sale? Does it lead to conversion data? Does it lead to creating a loyalty pact with that customer?
That makes sense. Yeah, because even like you go check out ours, you check out, and then there's add this to your cart, pops up, or, there's all these different, or if you like this, then there's these down here. I find myself doing that with Amazon. Is like, I'm like, I won't even search for the best one. I'm just like, search it, and then I'll read it, and then I'll look down at the other 5 options to compare them and stuff.
Yeah, they've trained you to do that. I mean, they literally trained you to do that. So that's why, so the first thing we did for Mammoth was like, okay, let's explore that. Let's look at it. And I have a great deal of experience both working in Amazon, on Amazon, around Amazon, launching brands on Amazon, and looking at how marketplace dynamics work. So pretty quickly I realized like that's not going to work. And then we looked at a couple of other tools. We spent probably a year working on a Shopify platform. So we built a tremendous amount of infrastructure underneath and around Shopify to use the transaction. And then what we realized what we needed to do for our customers was build something that was entirely custom, because what we were fascinated by is that second bottle, that average order value, and the lifetime value of a customer. And our belief is that every direct-to-consumer sale has to make you smarter. It has to tell you something about that consumer. You have to learn that. So what we do is we augment all of the customer information we have with demographics, with like different kinds of geographical data. But, how long has someone been in their house? Do they own it? Are they, what age group are they in? Beginning to understand some of that stuff has taught us a tremendous amount of information, a tremendous amount about the marketplace as a whole. It also helps each and every one of our distillers to take their cut of the information. So they own their customer data. We don't share it with everyone else. It's not put into a big pool for everyone to use. We look at the data to be able to help, train our algorithms and train our AIs to do better stuff. But the real value is a consumer can look at it, or not consumer, one of our distillers can look at it and say, when do my consumers buy? When do they buy the most expensive products? What do they put in their cart? What do they put in their cart first? And what do the people who put the best product in the cart first, who buy multiple times at the highest lifetime value, what do they look like?
Yeah.
Chances are I can tell you that for many of them, it's probably, a 45 or north man or woman who are married and have been in their house for longer than 15 years.
How are you getting that deep with demographic?
Creepy internet stuff.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, I was like, I understand there's usually a sign-up form, but I'm not usually putting in my household income when I'm registering for, an e-commerce site. So.
And this is,
your IP address.
This is entire. Well, sadly, that is part of the truth. But the all of the information that we put out in the world that's associated with our email address. So when we fill out forms, when we do things all like that, all of that information is actually for sale. And we're buying legal information. We're buying all this. So we buy all the third-party data that's available about the email of your customer, and then we augment it with your list,
Nice.
Essentially.
Yeah, it
Okay.
kind of reminds me, I can't remember which book I was read, but it's talking about how like Target, a similar situation, they, by the purchasing habits and this and that, they can pinpoint the due date of a mother, like
Before she knows she's pregnant.
or like, right. Yeah, exactly. Like they can pinpoint within like a 2 or 3 day window before like she even knows, like just based on the purchasing habits.
Yeah.
It's so.
Some of that I think is a better story than something they use on a regular basis, but there's certainly truth to that we give away a tremendous amount of information about ourselves. And I'm a big privacy advocate, but at the end of the day, that information's available and it helps us all get smarter about who we're selling to. And it doesn't just help the distiller. This is information that we believe the distiller should be taking to their retail partners, to their distributors, to everybody. Say, we're huge in Denver. Put us on shelves in Denver. Like our job, at least how we see it, is we're here to make those distillers successful. Chad and Tracy, who own Mammoth, would punch me if we didn't help make distillers successful. They're the reason that we're doing this. So, in the back of our minds, and Ari's a distiller, like we're always trying to figure out, okay, we wanted to build a system, we wanted to build a company, we wanted to build an ethos for all of DTC that says the distiller should be the one being successful, because this entire system, this entire industry essentially puts the distiller as the last person to get paid, the last person to be able to charge more, the last person to be able to grow, because everybody else is, this is the worst word probably, what I was supposed to use, but is parasitic on the distiller.
That's a great word.
And so we looked at it and said, okay, well, can we build a system where we don't have to be a parasite, where we're additive, where we make money because we have to do this, and college kids' tuition is very expensive, FYI.
I'm sure it is.
For those of you who don't know. But, we wanted to make sure that we built something with that ethos in mind. And that's sort of, for us, it's like DTC is a part of this physical, digital, technological, and behavioral system that you have to care and feed for all of it. You have to make sure that like a brand that's growing is going to get on shelves, and we want to give them tools to get on shelves. So now we know where your best customers are. We know where the people who buy your expensive products are. We know where the people who buy multiple products are. We know where the people who buy at certain times of day, certain times of year are. And you have to be able to take that information and then go to a distributor and say, hey, get us on these shelves in this state, in this zip code. It's not going to be a waste of your money. Now, from the distributor's perspective, it's like, okay, well, now we can optimize our warehouse infrastructure because we know this is a national deal, but really not Rhode Island. Rhode Island's awesome, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you don't have to be there if you don't have to be there. So you can start thinking about things in a different way. And again, talking about how technology changes our behaviors. Most of the behavior that we see in any system is observational about the transaction that happened. This happened then. Well, if you don't know why it happened, you can't really predict what's going to happen next, and you can't do it better. You can't say, oh, wait a second. If people like that flavor, what it means is maybe they're moving towards more sweeter profile. We're seeing all this data that says that. I don't have the data to back that up. I'm just saying.
I can anecdotal data prove that one.
Right?
Yeah.
But versus, something that's way more oaky, which was, obviously a trend for a while. And those things are happening and changing. But if you're a distributor or if you're retailers, you can look at the DTC space where real experimentation is happening, where real, barrel by barrel experiments are happening. And those kinds of limited time offers, if you're gathering data from them, well, the whole industry gets smarter. So when we look at, what we do and what we do for people is, it's not just as simple as saying like, oh, we're going to help you sell a product. It's not a buy button. If you just put a buy button on your site, well, good luck. Because someone's got to find it. Someone's got to believe it. They've got to connect with your story. They got to do all this stuff. And if you're not looking at that entire experience, then you're gonna fall short, and you're gonna be frustrated, and you're gonna blame the software company that set the site up, and you're gonna be like, it's too complex, it's not worth it. Well, it's not worth it because you're not making money. If you were making money, it would feel worth it.
Yeah. So walk me through. So, all right, Pursuit Spirits here. All right, you're coming in, and so like, where do you start with the distillery? Do you look at like, all right, let's start with your basic email list, and like, tell me how you start and like start looking and start implementing this mesh network.
First and foremost, just there's the block and tackling of making sure that everything can be put into our system, and everything ships out of DC with us, which is
that was okay. The next question. We're fulfillment size.
I was like, conceptually, this all sounds great, but I was like, there's a huge red flag that I was bringing up,
especially being in Michigan.
It's a gray flag. So we can come back to that because it's super important to acknowledge a whole bunch of stuff that are both limitations and weirdly opportunities because of the sort of restrictions. So the first thing we do is just make sure that the product is, entered into the system, that we can get the product to DC, that it can go into our partner, our retail partner there. And then we build a site, put all the information in, get everything up and running in a couple of days. It's a very, very fast turnaround because we're a partnership of distilling expert, sort of marketing why human beings do weird shit expert, and then experts, and then some really, really deep bench technology experts who are focused on, the systems, how systems integrations work and all that other stuff. So we're able to really automate that onboarding process and get that done for people really quickly. Then once everything's set up, I think I would say, and during the setup process, we talk with people to say, what do you own? What do you really own in terms of like, if you've got this tasting experience downstairs, if you've got restaurants that you are in, or if you have like Mammoth, they have multiple tasting rooms at like lots of different tourist places in Michigan, or whatever you have, or if you have a giant email list of people that are interested. And then what we do is we try to say, okay, all of those things need to now begin directing to a transaction. So if you have a tasting room at the end of every tasting, oh, do you like that? Do you want to buy the bottle? No, I got to get on a motorcycle and drive across North Carolina today. Well, here's a QR code. Let's just order it on for you right now and it'll be ready when you get home. Like taking those moments of real interactions that would be a lost sale and turning them into a DTC or an online sale. So training your staff, getting people used to offering that, getting people, customers used to saying, oh yeah, I don't have to bring it on the plane. I don't have to carry it on. I don't have to pack it in my bags and pray. I can just have it shipped. And getting that behavior started is critical. The second thing, just, looking at the email list, whatever email list you have, and saying, okay, of those people, have they all double opted in? Have they all conformed to all the laws? Which is weird. There are more laws about like how emails go out than there are about or there's more conformity about the laws for emails than there are about liquor sales in this country, which is really weird.
GDPR kind of like put the little
yeah,
kibosh
exactly.
on them.
Yeah. Thanks, France.
Yeah.
So, looking at all those things and making sure that list is right. And then what we can start doing is taking that list and start, emailing and marketing to that group of people, but really, really measuring who's buying and who's not buying and who's responding and all of that. And that's sort of the start. And what we like to do is just say, okay, let's make it available. Let's talk about what you've really got that's strong. And then that's our base. Now we understand like that's the rolling rate. That's what we should be selling on a regular basis. Then the next thing that we really look at is what's that conversion rate on the site. If people are coming to your site and they're not buying, we have to look at why. Is it pricing? Is it product options? Are they defecting at the point of purchase because they see the shipping and they want something different for shipping costs? Are they not adding enough to cart and they're defecting in the shopping experience? We can look at all those things and say, okay, we need to change the product mix, or maybe let's just play with pricing. And play with pricing doesn't mean drop the price. There are times when you raise the price and people are going to buy more.
We haven't explored that option yet.
Listen, it's super weird. It's super weird, but people, and people are I'm not supposed to say. People are unique. People are unique.
That's
and
PC way of saying it.
Yeah, they make decisions. You're not selling juice. If there's one thing
selling
we can
a story in their head, yes.
You're selling. So, and again, maybe I'm a little bit crazy on this, but the reality of selling, particularly whiskey, of all the things that we buy in the world, when we buy whiskey, we're making a deep calculation. And you guys are all in this position. Ari's in this position. I'm in this position. I'm the least. I should never be in this position. Everyone that comes to your house says, "Oh, what should I have?"
Oh, it's the worst question.
You're
just like, I don't even know where to start. They'd be like, "Oh, what's your favorite?" And I'm like, I can't even answer that right now.
And I don't have a great palate. Like I'm not I'm not one of the super taster like Ari or you guys probably as well, where I'm like, good, I liked it.
Yeah.
And that's I'm very binary.
I'll take 3. Right. Perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
So people come over and my fear, and as irrational as it is, and I think we all have this, is like, if they don't like it, I lose status. So when I buy a bottle online, when any of us buy a bottle, and particularly from craft distilleries, because if you buy a mainstream product and someone doesn't like it, you're just like, you're the problem, buddy, not me and not this giant industry. But if I give something to someone and it's like, oh, this amazing product that I bought, and I tell this whole story, and then people are like, oh, it's lighter fluid, you're just like, shit. and you lose status in your alleyway. I live in Chicago. We drink across the alley from each other in garages. You lose status. So when people make a decision online, you've got to be very aware that that's what they're doing. So they're looking at it and they're saying, I haven't tried this online, or I did try this somewhere, or I didn't, or I've heard it because Fred Minnick talked about it. What they're really doing is they're giving themselves permission to buy. They want to buy it. But you need to think about that as not like, here are your reasons. It's just like, no, this is the staff favorite. This is Fred Minnick loved this. Brian absolutely raved about this one. It must be good. I have backup. If my neighbor doesn't like it, I can just be like, Bourbon Pursuit liked it. And you're an idiot, right? So really what we're looking at in terms of, if someone's not pulling the trigger, are we giving them reasons to believe? Are we giving them that sort of that quick sense of like, my status is okay? And that's important to think about as you set them up for the sale and as you close the sale.
So I got 2 questions for you. One is going into just like laying the groundwork. You had mentioned at Mammoth, and if somebody's on a motorcycle, they're driving, and it's like, how do we capture that sale? So it sounds like there's a training regimen that has to happen from a staff level to say like, hey, you just can't let a customer walk out the door. Like you gotta train people to be able to know the questions and sort of drive that next interaction.
There's training, I can tell you firsthand. There's training that's involved with that, but because it's a digital sale, and when I started learning about direct consumer, many of my friends have really fantastic marketplaces. Sometimes it was a really great experience. Sometimes I was a little bit underwhelmed with whether the transaction made me as a business person smarter, whether I could use that transaction to get better over time. So when I heard Bruce kind of talking about direct to consumer and his approach based on a decade and a half working in the e-commerce space in this digital environment in these other industries, and how best practices that had been established over decades, frankly, had not yet come to the spirits industry. It was kind of mind-bending. I was like, well, yeah, of course I want to know average order value. Of course I want email addresses. I want to know who's buying the most and who, I want to be able to sort my customers and my audience based on frequency or average order value. It's like, all of that sounds really great. Is it even possible? That's one of the reasons why I became really interested. But again, where the rubber hits the road is, how are you having these person-to-person interactions and how are you capturing the data? And yeah, there's training. Like, there has to be training. But because it's a digital transaction, you can attribute a sale. You can attribute a sale to a specific salesperson. You can incentivize them. You can tell a salesperson, after the entire year is over, we're going to look at the people who scanned your QR code in order to make the purchase, or you used your discount code when that initial transaction happened. And let's look at not just that one transaction, but let's look at the purchase history of that customer over the last 12 months. And let's incentivize the salesperson. Let's commission them, essentially, based on the entire year of sales, not that one transaction. You can do that in a digital sale if you own the transaction. You cannot do that in any other kind of sale, as far as I'm aware. And then you can gamify it, right? So everyone, all of your people in all the tasting rooms are now making these recommendations, or they have QR codes or discount codes so that the sales can be attributed. And now all your employees in various, for every transaction that's over $100, value over the course of that year, your name goes into the hat once, and at the end of it, someone's going to get, a paid vacation somewhere. So you can gamify it.
Up north, Michigan.
You can go to up north, right? Which is a very different kind of sales philosophy than anything I had experienced, and it just intuitively made sense.
Yeah. Oh, you had one more question.
I had another question, and I think I forgot it already.
Well, I have one.
You go ahead, and it'll probably bounce back to me.
I love all this, and it's great, and it sounds like a lot of emphasis on, closing the sale, getting the data, this and that. How as a distiller or producer or whatever, do you have solutions to help grow that list or grow those, those potential customers, that I can attract
right,
to
that base pool.
Exactly.
Like, how do you make the pool bigger?
Yep.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of things that we would say. We look at that's stage 2 in many ways. The first thing that we would say to everybody is maximize the people that you have. They're the most efficient dollars that you can spend in terms of like we automate most of the emails that people on our network send out. Like, they can send them out themselves, but we just automate them because we can do it for free. So it's like, take advantage of all the things that you can do without cost. Take advantage of all the things that you can do without spending a lot of money. And then once you feel like you've got 5,000, 6,000 people, 10,000 people, or 2,000 people in your list, and you're getting them to transact on a regular basis, and now you're a habit for them, the first step with that existing audience is now you have to start thinking about ways that you can turn them into media. How do you get them to share? How do you incentivize them to gift to a friend? How do you incentivize them? So the holidays are coming up. Are you sending out an email that says to all of your best customers saying, hey, we'd love to you obviously love us, but we'd love for you to gift us to a friend. Let them gift it. Take your top 100 customers, or 50 or 10 or whatever your number is that works sense for your business. Give those people a free gifting bottle. Do different times of the year. Just look at the people who love you and say, give them a mechanism and an outlet to share. So that's behavioral. It's pretty low cost at the end of the day. And it's a way to say get over the biggest hurdle with online commerce, which is tasting.
Yeah, very, very much true. It's like you can look at a pair of sunglasses on a Facebook ad, but it's hard to look at a bottle on a Facebook ad and go, keep scrolling. Like, I
don't even the sunglasses, man. Like, they always wind up weird unless I try them on. So maybe my head is just broken. I know my nose has been broken a bunch of times.
But you lifetime warranty. Get every 2 pairs, get 1 free, and it's hard to do that sometimes in the whiskey world.
Right. I would go with the lifetime warranty. I think that would be fun. No one's offering that right now. No one, like everyone uses warranties as a way to make decisions, but no one ever redeems them. So yeah, what the hell?
That's true.
It's like, hey, if you don't like it, you can pay to ship it back to us.
Yeah.
But
It's like the old school rebates, but they always get lost in the mail. They never made it back to you.
Yeah.
You'll forget about it because it takes 6
Every
months.
time I get
process.
an oil change, I swear.
and in Illinois, that's the Menards business model. Everything's
There's another mechanism that I'm a big fan of as more and more distilleries kind of make this transition to owning your own CRM, own your own customer list, understand who your customers are, try to build that list. So one of the ways I think about it is that we have these projections, we have goals. We can talk about what's happening with projections in this industry, right? Sales projections. We have a certain number of cases that you're trying to hit or a certain amount of revenue that you're trying to hit. Add to those high-level goals, you're trying to add a certain number of email addresses. That is a metric that you can measure. Anything that you can measure will improve over time, right? And because...
Very Peter Drucker of you. I don't know if you know he's a...
No, I don't.
Oh, he's
Thank
a
you.
management writer.
oh yeah.
Anyways.
No, thank you. I'm going to have to check it out now. But when we're talking about digital sales, there's a lot of strong digital social networks that already exist. So one of the things that brands can do is tap into existing social networks, tap into networks. And Bruce was talking about how people emotionally make decisions. You can create products and you can align with large emotional affinity groups, whether that is alumni associations or people who love playing baseball, or a recent one that we did. And we're very, at Mash Networks, we believe in confidence. We don't talk about individual customers. Mammoth gave us permission, and again, they were sort of the test case, the initial test case. Now, dozens and dozens and dozens of brands that we work with. But one thing that Mammoth did was hired shipwreck divers to go to the bottom of Lake Huron and retrieve wood from a shipwreck, and toasted the wood, put it in a...
I was about to say, where's this going?
Put it in a 24-year-old whiskey, right? And
we've encouraged them to just talk to scuba divers. I think is where this.
Well, what happens is there are social networks that are geographically distributed across the country of very intense shipwreck lovers who are happy to pay $500 for a bottle of shipwreck whiskey, and you can sell many, many bottles if you can tap into an affinity group. And we've all seen it, I think, with various alumni associations.
I mean, so how are you doing that though? Is it just like going through Facebook groups and finding these people? Like, how do you connect these dots of all these different groups?
Yeah. So every brand serves a customer base. Who's your addressable market, right? And what are the larger populations or addressable markets where you can be the whiskey connection, right? We obviously love talking to our people are the whiskey people. And we love talking to the whiskey people, but I think to break out of just the whiskey environment, you have to tap into other markets. You can be the whiskey people of horses. You can be the whiskey people of
golf or whatever.
Golf. A great example is golf.
Example.
I mean, golf is an incredibly scalable example.
Barbecue, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever. Find your people. What is your brand? Who does your brand stand for? Who is your brand serving? And then go find those affinity groups and figure out how to align your incentives. If it's an alumni association, it might be proceeds from each sale go to the scholarship fund or go to an NIL fund so you can go buy a better quarterback.
I like that.
But that's what emotionally gets people who might drink whiskey, might not drink whiskey, but there might be 500,000 email addresses there. Gets your product in front of them, and then it filters those 500,000 alumnus for who likes whiskey as well. And once they make that purchase, they feel good about it. $5 went to the scholarship fund, but now you have their email address, and you can now retarget them. So that is an example of a way that you can build that CRM.
Yeah, it's a lot of ideas. It's a lot of things that are just spinning in my head of like, oh, there's so many opportunities out there, but people are just focused solely on tasting room traffic, or what can they do to just tag the word bourbon in a Google SEO search, and you're gonna lose to Brown-Forman every single time on those searches, right?
You can't win. I mean, just SEO. Quick thing: go out and buy your own distillery name. Like buy around it, get words around it. What people don't realize is how many people who are looking for you just can't find you because you're not available on Google. So just as a quick, for everybody out there, for whatever reason, go do a little bit of research on SEO and make sure that your name pops for your distillery when people search for it. So that's just a general rule of thumb that everyone should be doing, but not everyone does because not everyone has the time and not everyone thinks about it, right? just coming back to what Ari talked about, the important thing that you have to think about, like you can't just go out and get every single barbecue festival in the area, although barbecue's not a bad idea for bourbon, but it's about passion, because passion gets people to act. So when we talk about things like an alumni association or things like that, those are people who care deeply about something, and you align your brand with something they care deeply about. That's more likely to get an action.
We need to get those bonsai tree people.
We sure do.
We're sponsoring a bonsai tree festival here. And
Amazing.
They'll act very slowly.
yeah, that's great. I like that.
But that's weirdly, that might be the thing. I think what we've seen is that when brands are connected to truly passionate things, people act. If you go out and you're just like, oh, your brand isn't about what that golf course is about. Maybe it's just it's not a quality course. It's just got a lot of members and they just sort of undifferentiated, versus you go to maybe a smaller club with a very passionate base who believes in the tradition of their club. And they believe that, it was designed in 1934 by Donald Ross and it's in those are just words.
Those are buzzwords.
It works.
But the, finding that a little bit of the truth that you can feel like you belong there is going to make it so that when people come to your brand, they're predisposed, to understand your story and value your story. You have to do a little bit of, it's not always about scale. And in fact, most of the craft distillers that people talk about scale, but it's not really scale. It's not global scale. It's not, it's not trying to eke out pennies. It's about selling more bottles, which is really about margin. So you want to go somewhere where people are willing to pay a premium for your better product. And you want to make sure you're tied with that point of their passion, the quality, the uniqueness of it. Those kinds of things help you make that transition to a sale of your bottle. So you have to give some thought to that.
So for instance, in this situation, one thing that someone could do is create a bonsai wood finished bourbon. The bonsai
take a lot of trees.
Take a lot of bonsai.
Just very small barrels.
Little
barrels.
Bonsai staves.
And then that's a premium offering. And then you offer a discount if they bundle it with one of your standard offerings. Now you've increased your order size. They have something that's really cool that they can show off to your friends. Again, use shipwreck, use bonsai, use whatever.
Yeah. That to go to this garden and scout out trees for.
You need a lot of bonsai.
Yeah. I just think that you just make your shot glasses out of them.
Yeah, there you go.
But so one other thing that Ari just mentioned that I think is really important. Again, a lot of this stuff is whether you work with us or whether you work with anybody, think about these things. And it's super, super important to think about conversion, not just conversion that they bought the bottle, but they bought the LTO bottle. Is that a tornado warning? Okay, we should be fine. So the thing to really think about is how are you converting them to your fan? So if you work with some organization and you say, okay, we're gonna make this special limited time offer bonsai bottle, and Ari said, you want them to buy one of your standard expressions as well. You want to make sure that they're converted to your brand, that they don't just have a connection with you because of that one experience, that they buy like one of your regular bottles. Again, average order value goes up. We really measure average order value, lifetime value of customers, transaction rate, conversion rate. And those are the things that really matter when you're looking at the success of DTC. But long-term, you want to convert people to regular buyers of your regular products because that's where you make the most money. So just make sure that as you're doing those experiences or those things, it's not just buy this one bottle. They can't just go to a page and see one bottle. They have to see your catalog. That partnership bottle might be first, but they've got to see your catalog. If they don't, you're wasting time and money and opportunity, which is the thing you can't get back.
Yeah.
This is like a whole LTO strategy, essentially. Your LTOs are a tool to get new customers in the door to buy a bundle of not just your LTO product, not just your bonsai, your shipwreck, or whatever it might be. But you can use the LTOs to get into these affinity groups and then extract, essentially, the whiskey fans who will now be fans of your brand because they have that emotional connection to the LTO, but they still love your brand and will continually rebuy the standard expression.
Yeah, I love it. And there's one thing I kind of want to wrap up on as we start talking about this because, we've implemented a little bit on the DTC side, but I think really where a lot of the opportunity lies is not just in that one-time add to cart, get the bottle, but it's subscription, right? It's like, how do I do my quarterly shipments? How do I get something that is for us on a producer side, I look at it as annual recurring revenue, right? From a software as a service model. It's like that allows me to know exactly this is what I can assume is going to come in. I can scale my business this way. I can make investments here now, knowing that I'm going to get money later. Kind of talking about the importance of what a subscription model can bring to something like this too.
Yeah, I think we haven't done as much subscription because a lot of the partners that we work with, it's been less of a priority because they're in that sort of primary sort of like, harvesting the consumers that they have. What we found with subscriptions is that it is a nice thing to talk about, but it doesn't drive as much revenue as we would have thought and we would have hoped, to be honest. We did a lot of early experiments with it. We saw that, people, weirdly enough, it's like a guarantee. People liked the idea that could be there for them at some point, but they just bought a bottle and came back later. So what we track is, in terms of lifetime value of customers, is like how often are people buying or rebuying? Because that tells us maybe we should be reinvesting in subscription architecture. And, 48 days for some brands, 68 days for repurchase for other brands, but a lot of brands, it's in the 300-day cycle for small craft brands particularly. So there's some other mechanics that are at work there in terms of buying behavior that we are actively pulling apart. And this is where AI has helped us tremendously because we can see patterns and data that 2 years ago we would have had to pay some giant Swiss mathematics company to figure out. So we don't have to do that anymore. We can just ask a machine and 15 seconds later we get like staggering results.
It's amazing how it just helps with my daughter's homework and math questions that I can't solve these days.
You take a picture of the computer screen, solve and explain.
Yep, it does it
right there with
amazing.
You. Yes, that is it. So you said mostly it's like a 300-day time
for a lot
first purchase to reorder.
I would say on average we're in the 120 days kind of thing. The far end of it where we're tracking is about 300 days. So the shortest interval that we see is about 48 days. And that, again, that's averages across different pieces of business. So for one single brand, we do know we have 48 days, which is the shortest interval that we've seen.
That's great. Yeah. 48 days.
All right. So the last question I'll throw at you, because I'm sure everybody that's on the producer side is wondering this, and you can use Mammoth as a kind of like a show pony here. Sort of like, what's been their ROI on this? Like, what have they gotten out of it? They've been like, this is worth every penny that we've spent with you all.
Without getting too much into anybody's
financials, you don't need that. But,
I think what we've seen on average is in terms of growth, just to put it into a number, like into a round number that's sort of defensible for somebody's CFO later on when they come yell at me. But I think what we've seen is 200% and 300% increase in DTC sales once you sort of commit to the program and start growing. We've seen way larger than that. We've seen like staggering gains for some, but 5 and 6 times revenue over the course of a year is not something you should be surprised by if you're committing to doing some of these things and training your staff and doing the other things. I think the only people that wind up having trouble are the folks who don't treat this seriously. If you looked at DTC and said, I'm going to have the single best retail outlet in all of the world, how would you treat that retailer? How seriously would you treat that retailer if they became 20% of your business, 25% of your business? How would you treat that single retailer? And that's what we say, you have to treat that channel that way because that's the opportunity. And, we're looking at, what's that Chinese proverb? May you live in interesting times. I mean, this industry is about to head into some really interesting times. And we think that DTC is, not just a way to grow the business. It may save people's businesses. And that's how we're trying, that's the desperation we feel for our customers right now.
I can speak about this viscerally.
Yeah.
This is what I think about at 4 a.m. when I'm staring at the ceiling. And I'm sure you are like that as well, which is the 2019 playbook that we all built our projections around is not the 2026 playbook. And we have to start playing by the 2026 playbook. And I should timestamp this is 2025 when we're recording.
Yeah.
But that is just to say, a lot of us built businesses on assumptions that are not holding. And the ground is moving. And some of us recognize that, I think, more than others. And projections that I personally was putting together just a handful of years ago, we're going to expand this many states in this year. These states, which are our base states, we're going to go really deep into them. Well, we're not, I'm not necessarily expanding like I thought I would in conventional distribution. And the share of sales that have become direct to consumer, because it's a more efficient sale, it's a more profitable sale. Like Bruce said, it creeps up from 10% to 30%, plus of total sales very, very quickly. And as a platform, I mean, not to give away too much information, but we're up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of percent year on year, because I think more people, whether it's on this platform or another platform, are seeing that we call them headwinds, right? This is a euphemism. They are multiple tsunamis coming at small distillers. Headwinds don't bury your business. Tsunamis bury your business. And we're fighting for survival as craft spirits brands, right? The economy. Distributors who are our partners are also facing a lot of cutbacks. When they cut back, oftentimes it's the craft spirits divisions that they cut back. Retailers who are our partners, who we want to help serve, we're all aligned here. They don't necessarily want to bring on more inventory. They want to sell the inventory that they have in-house. So these are not headwinds. These are multiple tidal waves coming at smaller producers. In my opinion, the bright spot is we can now interface directly with our customers. We can build our customers. We can network through these existing networks. These are opportunities that were not possible a handful of years ago, but are going to be integral to particularly craft spirits brands, but I think all brands in the very near future, because we're seeing the dominoes. Every week we're seeing a press release about a domino, about a brand that we held up as like, we want to be like them. Oh, they're owned by the bank now. Oh, they were fire sold. Okay, the things that we had assumed about this industry may or may not have been true. And I think direct to consumer is one of the bright spots, if not the bright spot, for spirits brands, and being able to do it in a way that's more than a buy it now button where you really own your consumer. I think that's hopefully where much of this industry is going.
Glad you turned that around. That got dark
for
a while.
I want to be honest.
It's got to break you down and build you up.
Welcome to Sunshine and Puppies.
It makes sense because every other consumer product, you have that DTC concept, and then you prove that first, then go to retail, and then go to department stores and whatnot. So but in spirits, it's totally different. You have to go through the traditional retail model, and then you got to spray and pray, because you're like, they just put it wherever, and hopefully the customers will go to it. And this is a more strategic, data-driven way to get it into the hands of the people that need it.
I think just to, again, probably getting short on time, but I one of the things that it's important for people to understand is this has all been done. This is not, we're not, we're charting a bit of a new path for this industry, but this has been done where disruptive small brands have come into spaces and owned a position in the marketplace. Like just think about like in the sneaker world, like Allbirds. Who the hell was that?
Yeah, or like Lululemon, Vuori.
Yeah, Vuori, like 0 to everywhere inside of a year. But those are so we're using those proven mechanics. The one thing that we don't spend a ton of time or energy on is so much of like outbound marketing and advertising, because we want to focus on owning that consumer for you, helping you get to know them and grow them. We believe in advertising. I spent my whole life in advertising. But what we feel is that for most of the partners that we're working with, that's down the road. You're spending money you can't compete if you're trying to buy the word whiskey online. Good luck. So what we feel is like, let's just own that experience, own that person, grow that person, turn them into an advocate. Now you're moving out into the world in a positive and sort of powerful position, because that people love you and lots of people love you. Instead of going out and spraying and praying and hoping someone bumps into you who happens to not have had coffee that day, so it doesn't affect the flavor profile of the thing that you've got, and the other million random things. So we don't really, we want to help people plan, grow, and measure in a very effective and cost-effective way. So that's kind of our philosophy for it. But I'm glad.
I
I'm
love
glad we. I'm glad we got out of that dark space because
We did it.
That was
Totally.
We did. Good with the save there at the end there, Bruce.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry.
It's very Canadian of you.
I felt I had to say sorry.
There we go. Well, awesome. Bruce, Ari, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. I mean, it's eye-opening, right? This is probably one of the things that, we love to think about and talk about, but we don't always have the expertise in it. And I'm sure a lot of people on our side and the producer side, they all have this idea like this, they want to do it. They just don't know how to do it. It feels like an ocean you have to boil when it comes to all those things that you mentioned, when it comes to making sure that you're capturing everything, making sure that you're advertising the right way, retargeting, email distribution, automating it as much as possible. I mean, it is something that you sometimes need a team behind it to make it happen. And so it's awesome to be able to have you come on, talk more about Mash Networks and giving our consumers or should I say our listeners, or technically consumers as well, audio, but an idea of like, this is another aspect of this whiskey industry that probably you don't think about.
Yeah. And why would you? You spent your life becoming an expert in something else. It's ridiculous to expect that someone who is a master distiller, a master blender, or, is operating a distillery is an expert in these things. That's why the big companies have whole departments. So what we've tried to do is like, how much of that big industry stuff can we bring and make it so it's usable? And that's kind of our philosophy on this is like, we want you to have all the tools that the big guys have, but we also understand that you can't spend 6 hours a day doing marketing. So we just automate that stuff. We just put it, we put all the best practices into the software and give people the tools. Because again, we're fans of distillers. That's who we want to help. That's who we're here for.
Well, then how can people get a hold of you? Give one last little plug for Mash Networks and
Show
yourself.
up at Bruce's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm super available. I live in the North Pole with Santa Claus and my meth cousin. So they can look us up at mashnetworks.co and just drop us an email there or send us a note there. And we're very responsive. We're obviously growing, as Ari said, very quickly right now, but we're very excited to bring on new partners. And as you can probably tell, we love talking about this shit. We are super passionate about this and this space and the difference that we can make. We're happy to have a conversation. And we're happy to help and share what we know, even if you're not going to do business with us. We think that making this industry more knowledgeable has a benefit for all of us. I don't see what we do as a zero-sum game. We don't, we respect the guys that are doing the same thing that are in parts of the industry with us. We want to be a good partner to our distiller partners, and we're available and talking and sharing what we know, and we're excited to work with people. That was really jumbly. Way to end it. I'm tired. Need more water.
It's perfect. Grab your water. I'll do the sign off here, man. But like I said, this is awesome. Make sure you go check out everything over at Mash Networks. Ari comes from this big background. We had him on, so I know when he partnered with this, there's got to be something good in the pipeline here. So I'm glad you were able to team up with Bruce and come on and really talk about this. It really shed a lot of light on a lot of things that, again, we don't think about. But make sure you follow them. Make sure you follow Bourbon Pursuit on all the socials. Share it with a friend. If you do like the show, want to support us, go check us out on Patreon. You can do it for as little as $5 a month. Or you could hit the buy now button on Pursuit Spirits webpage, right? So
That's right. We'll capture all your data.
Yes, that's what we're going to do.
We'll augment it.
That's what we're going to do. But with that, cheers, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Toodles.